I am back, ladies and gentlemen. Have I missed you guys while I was in LA trying to get some things done? And I'm back with a very special guest. You all have heard me always say the worst nightmare for MAGA, in particular MAGA men, is smart, highly educated, independent women. And if you want to put the icing on the cake, dare I say minority, and dare I say pretty fucking hot. That makes MAGA men so mad because they don't know how to control that shit. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got that type of individual on my show today that does the best job I've ever seen of putting facts and numbers into an eloquent story. We'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about what's going on with Lisa Cook and how Trump is wrongfully trying to fire her and accusing her of something that many Republicans have done. We got that. We've also got the trolling of Gavin Newsom, just enraging Trump and Fox News, having the nerve to call him out when, where have you been to call out Trump? And before we jump into this video in the intro, take a look at my guest. Her name is Kate P. I'm going to call her Katie P because she's up in this B tonight. And look at how she breaks down her show, and then we'll jump on into it.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is
Kate Powell, otherwise known as Kate for the People on TikTok, Instagram, Substack, YouTube, and Facebook. There are lots of new faces and plenty of old ones, and I've got lots of new content coming out, so I want to reorient everybody to this space. I'm an amateur menace to our federal government in this current hellscape. My undergrad was in music at James Madison University. Go Dukes. And my MPA was from South University. And I am a certified fundraising executive working in the nonprofit space, primarily in nonprofit management and fundraising. I also do consulting and professional education work on crisis planning and strategic planning. I'm a former pastor, have pretty much deconstructed and am reconstructing my own faith journey. You may see hints of that along.
I'm up early for the dealers come out. Everybody is outside till the killers come out. You ain't eating, you just act full. I'm impactful. Dozen funerals in a month. I got that pull. I will give it to niggas in all rap forms. Ignatius out right now on all platforms.
Nice.
There she is, everybody in the building. Kate P, how are you doing today?
I'm good. And it's so funny seeing someone else like use my videos. It's like, oh yeah, other people are able to use that. That's kind of like a surreal moment. Especially because I put some crazy stuff out there. So
when other people start using your videos, just know you have arrived.
There we go.
You are doing two things. You're doing good and you're doing bad for folks who don't live in the reality of facts that we live in and want to live in their own menagerie of Game of Thrones. You are ruining their lives, and you need to, by the way. You need to.
Yeah. I'm here to ruin lives.
Please,
I got it.
Please subscribe to her channel, ladies and gentlemen, on TikTok. Her link is in the video description. Does an amazing show. That was just a small sample of what she does and who she is. And she decided to have a little pity on my soul and come up here to talk politics, give some facts, and try to educate those who might be on the fence about what they want to do, which I don't know who you are if you're on the fence at this point in 2026. I like to kick this show off, Kate, by doing something that is my homage to the good women of the I've Had It podcast. I have a section that they have I call We've Had It, because me and you are teaming up today.
Right.
So I would love to know, what is something that's going on right now that you've had it with?
All right. Well, there's so many things. So let's just pick one, I guess. Okay. But I think the main thing that I've had it with is Article 2, that man in 1600 Pennsylvania, just willy-nilly firing people. I'm over it. Like, I'm over the idea that we think that we can just walk in, especially people who have been confirmed by the Senate. Like, you're not the only show on the road here, dude. And he just thinks that he can take a sledgehammer to the administrative state. And as a master of public administration, I take real issue with that. Administrators are by and large self-sacrificial public servants who are experts in their areas, spend a lot of time and resources, education, and whatnot to get to where they are, to understand their subject matter. And I'm not saying there's no bad administrators, there's plenty. But having an independent administrative state that certainly works with the president, but can be independent to make good choices, as I like to tell my kids, make good choices, is so important to us having like a functioning, not only just like a functioning government, but also a democracy worthy of being like, you know, the envy of the world. And I find it so frustrating that we want to be like the American exceptionalism folks, like the Republican Party in particular loves to, you know, push that whole like America's the greatest, you know, in the world thing. But we're dismantling all of the things that make us great. And it's enraging. I've had it with that. Like, stop firing all of the smartest people in the room just because you're a sad, strange little man. You don't have my pity. It's a Toy Story quote for those who are unfamiliar.
Well, like Kate too, I've got 2 young children. As a man who decided to have kids after the age of 40, I'm real big on set boundaries, set laws, put things in place, and follow it. Because if we're not doing that, then what the hell are we doing? Now, I thought that the Republican Party was the law and order party.
Right. Yeah.
But you voted a man in office who has 32 felony counts. And you're the law and order party. He gets in office and he pardons people who tried to insurrect the Capitol on January 6th for a free and fair election. And he pardons these criminals that went in there, shitted on the White House, broke windows, beat up cops, but you're the party of law and order. That was no order, Kate. I am 100% with what you're saying. 100%. It should not be that someone who does not have the authority to fire someone can just all of a sudden walk in as if the United States government is some kind of corporate ragamuffin and just say, you're fired.
Right. Well, he definitely—
You're fired.
Yeah, he definitely still thinks it's The Apprentice. I mean, that it's very clear to me that this is like a game. It's a show to him, and he is the star, which is, I think, how that man has always run his life. And I mean, I'm like fine to leave him to it, just not with the U.S. government. And that's the part that's so like baffling to me about this whole thing. I'm like, if that's your taste, like, have at it. Go run your company that way. Go start another reality TV show. I don't care. There's plenty of shitty TV, but that whole this whole thing where we're going to use, you know, the presidency as our platform, for that, it's disgusting. You know, and so like, let's take Lisa Cook for instance from the Fed. Federal independent. Let me start back up. The central bank's independence is like the gold standard of the international banking financial sphere. And
IMF, ladies and gentlemen, IMF.
Right. Yes. And we're the ones who set that standard in the United States, and all the other, you know, developed economies followed suit, you know, European Central Bank and whatnot. And they're now looking at, like, the ECB is looking at us going like, oh my God, like, now, you know, this Lisa Cook is not just an unjust firing, an unconstitutional firing. If he's successful, which fortunately she's already slapped him back as she should have, and said like, yeah, that's nice, come get my seat. You know, the consequences of that kind of shakeup, of that loss of independence, of it being extremely clear that the Fed is now just a political, you know, shuttlecock for, you know, for presidential or congressional candidates to just bat back and forth. That's like a hugely economic problem. I don't care which party you are. I don't care how much, like, if you love Trump, I mean, go for it, I guess. But like, do you like your money more? Do you like not having hyperinflation? Like, we could all be billionaires tomorrow because we could just end up with hyperinflation where, all of our money is now worthless because it's like, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I'm just, I am so baffled by anyone who is still holding out. I will say a lot of the Republicans seem to have gotten real quiet about Lisa Cook. You know, like, obviously Trump and his acolytes, Bill Pulte, of course, is like, you know, making this big. But I think congressional Republicans are being very quiet. Like, Tim Scott Senate banking, hasn't said a damn thing about this. I think he's like afraid to he doesn't want to cross Trump, so he doesn't want to say like, no, dude, you can't do that. But he's also not saying like, sure, let's fire her, because I think he's like, if this, if like even the most dyed-in-the-wool MAGA Republican understands money, and they know that the Fed's independence disintegrating like that is hugely problematic. So I'm like, if anything should unite us, it should be this. Like, this should be the moment where everyone should be like, yeah, no. If it was really economics that drove the 2024 federal election and getting us this man as president in the first place, then which is the number one reason that was cited, then everyone should be clear on this. We're not going to fire her without an actual allegation, right? Without an actual cause. And that's the big problem, is that they said they filed like criminal complaints, but again, they're somewhere. We still have no evidence. Like, there's no ideas. Nothing has been found as being, it's taking a freaking long time for something that's like a mortgage application. So I'm just I really am just like, okay, so did she or did she not check that box on the mortgage application? Did she or did she not actually get that rate? Because that's the craziest part to me. I don't know if, for those of you out here who have never gotten a mortgage, let me tell you something. There's a million steps between you fill out the application and you close the thing. And there's a lot of failures along the way if you manage to say, oh yeah, it's my primary residence, but it's really not. Like, it's not like they just take your word for it.
No,
and you run to the, especially in 2021 when this supposedly happened, like, no way. They were all like, everyone was checking everything. So anyway, it's just wild to me.
And ladies and gentlemen, we will come back to talk a little bit more about Lisa Cook and just kind of some more of the reasons why Trump chose her. His ultimate goal is to ramrod the Federal Reserve with all his lackeys that are ready to just fucking rip up the economy. And I think, to Kate's point, I'll push back a little bit and say that the business MAGA folks understand that what Trump is doing could ruin them.
Right.
Unfortunately, the base of MAGA have no idea what's going on, because they spend they spend 22 hours hanging from West Virginia by their two teeth, injecting Fox News, who covers the stories in a completely different way. And we're going to break it down for them, because I've done this talk, and I'm glad to have someone that we can bounce some ideas off of to talk about it. And I've had it today, Kate. Of all the things I've done, I had a business working with young children in the outpatient setting in North Carolina as a respiratory therapist, outpatient services, working with kids that had asthma and kids that had special needs, right?
Right.
And I've always had this soft heart for kids, to the point where I even bought and invested in childcare property. And so I'm always torn up whenever there's a mass shooting involving anyone, but in particular kids. And so I've had it today is I am fucking had it with thoughts and prayers, as if that alone is going to fix a problem that we've been giving thoughts and prayers to since before I was born in 1980. I'm tired. I've had it when we could so easily fix this problem. We got the technology to do it like that. My suggestion that we should do, we should force, if we're not going to force people with these high powerful magazine guns to get rid of them or block them, the very least we could do is put some kind of microchip on them, make the manufacturer put a microchip on them. And anytime these guns pop up on a radar within 2 miles of a highly populated area, be it a concert, be it a school, be it a mall, anywhere, it sends a ping to the local authorities quickly. And that would eliminate the high caliber, high rate shootings just like that. And I guarantee you, if we were to push this agenda and get it through, MAGA would complain about that. They would probably come up and say, well, the government's tracking me. You're damn right. Because nobody goes and fucking hunts with a high assault rifle, because you wouldn't even like the meat. So Kate, am I wrong in my I've had it with thoughts and prayers, or just tell me where I'm wrong, where I'm right?
No, you're not wrong. First of all, people who are concerned about tracking, that's my favorite thing. I'm like, do you own one of these?
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you.
like, so
Mhm.
I can't take anyone seriously when they look at me with a straight face and say like, I don't want the government tracking me, but they're literally holding one of the smartphones in their hands.
Right.
I'm like, all right, well, anyway, that
Mhm.
ship has sailed then. um, but yeah, no, there, it's amazing. I don't know if you're an NPR politics or NPR podcast person. They have a whole series of podcasts that are just incredible, and one of them is Throughline, and they've been
Mhm.
doing for a couple of years now this series on the amendments of the Constitution, and they have one on 2A, the Second Amendment. And yeah, it's fascinating. Up until very, very recently, no nobody in the US government was under the impression that sensible gun laws and sensible gun ownership was at odds with the Second Amendment. That's not a founders thing. That's not an originalist thing. The founders had no concept of everybody should just be able to have a gun because whatever. And it's crazy. Okay, so we're on the Politics of Being Black podcast here.
Yeah.
The reason that the founders didn't want that is because slavery, when they started,
Mhm.
they weren't about to guarantee the right of everybody to have a firearm, because there were a lot of everybody's who were Black and enslaved or
Mhm.
freed. And the white landowners who wrote our Constitution were not really that interested in ensuring that every able-bodied man could have a weapon, because why would you?
Preach.
Right. So this is, it's not even originalist, like how our psychos on the Supreme Court like to talk about originalism to the Constitution and everything. This is nonsense. It is, the NRA was infiltrated. It's a long story, and like I said, the Throughline episode of this podcast does such a great job talking about it. But the the NRA was infiltrated by gun rights purists. I don't even know what you call them. And they overthrew the regime that was like all about like sensible gun ownership and whatnot. And
Mhm.
that's where that crazy right-wing lobbying arm came from. It did not come from original constitutional intent, did not come from the founding
Mhm.
fathers, had nothing to do with anything. I'm trying to remember exactly when this occurred, which decade, but I can't recall off the top of my head, so I won't misquote it. But
It was the 70s. It
70s,
was
okay, right,
70s.
yeah,
It was
yeah. I was
70s.
like 60s, 70s, yeah,
Yeah. No, it
yeah,
was like the early 70s. I'm
yep,
right in lockstep with you
right.
because there were two big things, and I'm sorry, folks, I'm going on a tangent. Y'all know how
Let's
I
do it.
roll.
Tangent.
There were two big things that the Republican Party kind of locked down in that situation. The gun thing you just mentioned, but also they started this attack on education in the
Mm-hmm.
70s as
Yep.
well. And what they did was they started having the propaganda of religion pushed more than education. And they played the long game till from the 70s till we just starting to see this thing coming to fruition now with Trump. It's like we're in an age of delightment because the Republicans have played this long game of we're going to get
Right.
people to think if you can believe in God and magic and the power God can do, you should certainly be able to believe in what one man says God told him to do for you over facts.
Yeah.
And
The prophets.
and it's yes, and it's right now it's working. But
Right.
people, I always say this, Kate, because I don't want folks to feel too depressed. There are more people who don't like Trump and vote against Trump than there are that like him. It
Yes.
might seem really, really bad right now, and I get it. I get it. It looks like he's winning on every cause, but it's up to you to continue to rally around people like me, people like Kate, people like the I've Had It podcast, people who are giving you real facts, not just the surface stuff, but what is really going on with the money.
Yep.
You know, a wise person once said, "You want to know what's going on with the government?
Follow the money.
Follow the money." And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're getting ready to do. So, Kate, and ladies and gentlemen, post your comments on what have you had it with. You've heard mine. You know, there's a hotline you can call me at right here, beacons.ai/politics of being black. You can get all my shows. You can get my IMDb. You can even leave me a 30-second voicemail to say whatever you want to say. You can do it too, MAGA, if you want to, and just let me know how you feel. Kate, I'm gonna transition you right on into Lisa Cook since we done started off with Lisa Cook. we
Let's do
might as well
it.
go ahead and finish the story. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about all the issues going on with Lisa Cook. But first, I've got a news clip for you guys to look at for context, and then me and Kate will go back and forth on it as soon as this is over. Here we go.
Do we have any more clarity on, whether Lisa Cook can keep her job?
No more clarity at this point. This is a court hearing, Stephanie, that lasted for about 2 hours. And at this point, we just have to wait a little longer to figure out if this particular judge believes President Donald Trump has the authority to fire this Federal Reserve Board of Governors member, Lisa Cook. Lisa Cook, the backstory here is that she's a Board of Governors member who was appointed to her role by President Joe Biden. And just a few days ago, members of the administration started posting on social media accusations that she allegedly committed mortgage fraud. President Trump started reposting some of these messages as well, and he used this as cause to say that if she didn't resign, that he would fire her. And then now we are at this point where Lisa Cook, along with her attorneys, went to court to try to get this particular judge to block President Trump from firing Lisa Cook. The backstory here is President Trump has been really critical of the Federal Reserve for not lowering interest rates. So many people see this as a possible way of the president trying to get more people into those roles who may align with his views. This is something that was argued in court today and in some of these filings. And one of the main issues here is this issue of cause. The president has the ability to fire Federal Reserve Board of Governors members if he has the proper cause. And one of the questions that came up is, how broad is this issue of cause? The attorney who's representing the government earlier today in court said there are no limits in what President Donald Trump can say is the proper cause to fire someone. And Lisa Cook's attorney really countered that in saying, so does this mean the president can just fire someone, say, for example, if he doesn't like the suit that they're wearing? The government attorney also said that the courts do not have the authority to review President Donald Trump in this particular matter. On the flip side of things, the attorney who's representing Lisa Cook, he said that there wasn't enough notice for her in order for her to prove that she had no wrongdoing in these issues. And when we talk about notice, remember, President Donald Trump posted on social media that she would be fired. And the attorney for the government said that was enough notice for Lisa Cook to know that this was coming. And then that was enough for her to go to court and say, I should not be fired. So this is something that the judge really tussled with the DOJ on in saying is something that was posted on social media. Is that official enough for this Board of Governors member to say, hey, I'm going to court and I'm going to sue against this? Once again, Stephanie, at this point, we have no decision from the judge. Judge Cobb is her name. She indicated that there will be additional briefings, meaning filings to the court into next week. She wants to be expeditious with regards to this matter. But this is something that certainly could make it all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court.
So
Kate,
much,
Lord,
so much to unpack. Yeah, Jesus Lord. So
where do you want to go first? Now,
oh
I'll tell you this.
God.
I'm worried if this thing goes to the Supreme Court. I'll say that. I don't think it will, but I'm worried if it does. Floor is yours first, and I'll rebuttal what you want to say, because, man,
Okay.
it's a lot to unpack right there.
Gosh, it really is, because I'm like trying to think, like, should we start at the very beginning? Because like the whole thing, of course, is the interest rates, right? Like Trump wants
Right.
lower interest
Right.
rates, and he thinks that he's going to
Mhm.
bully everybody into it. He's only got two
Right.
governors right now who are really on his side:
Mhm.
Waller and Bowman, Michelle Bowman.
Bowman. Yeah.
So many problems with her too, but anyway, it's a whole other thing.
Me too.
Yeah. So the two of them are all like, oh yeah, interest rates lowering sounds good. Of course, Jerome Powell is like, we'll look at the data and we'll make a decision like a boss, like an adult. He's like the one adult left standing in DC, I feel like.
Yep.
And so this is really, Lisa is just unfortunately the pawn in the game, because what Trump is really trying to do is prove a point to Jerome. Like he's trying to prove a point to Powell. He's not, he didn't care which of the board of Fed governors he found something on. Of course, it wasn't going to be Waller or Bowman, but any of them who were not going to bend the knee, he was going to find anything. He's not going to find anything on Powell. I don't think. That man strikes me as someone who's got like the squeakiest clean. He probably doesn't even have a parking ticket.
Well, he tried with Powell. I'll interject this. Powell and the Fed are remodeling their building that hasn't been remodeled and refurbished since, like, I think they said the 40s. And he tried to say that the budget was overdone. And too many business leaders and a lot of politicians that are MAGA stepped in and said, Trump, pump your brakes on that one.
Right.
You're definitely not going to win that. And so we haven't heard any more of it. So after that happened, ladies and gentlemen, he's trying to do a backdoor way to kind of make Powell take action. And this is where I give it back to Kate.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, this is definitely this is a threat to Powell. It's not really, it is a threat to Lisa, but it's primarily a threat to Powell. So that's, that's like the zoomed out version. Lisa is also, as they said, a Biden appointee, and she's not going anywhere without a fight, as you can see. But there's no way that she is has zero desire to lower interest rates. She's been probably one of the most vocal voices on the board saying, like, we're not freaking doing that. The other thing to keep in mind with this whole thing, and this is where I got so frustrated after Powell's Jackson Hole address, when he was explaining not only where we are and where he literally just said, guys, he did not say he was lowering interest rates. I can't even, I don't know how many more times to say it. But besides all that, besides talking about interest rates, he specifically was talking about the new framework that they were adopting. There had been a framework that they'd been working off, which I'm calling it the how low can you go framework, the ELB, effective lower bound. Basically, how low can we get these interest rates was the previous framework for the Fed. No more. The new framework is going to go back to a more classic model of very much focus on, while they have the dual mandate of price stability, which means if prices are going crazy, interest rates go up, and low unemployment, which means if unemployment is going high, interest rates go down, right? So there's the dual direction. However, this new framework is very much more focused on price stability, because price stability does tend to also steady the job market. And and so, whereas if you study the job market and you're just worried about job numbers, which Powell was very clear is not their mandate is unemployment rates, not job numbers, which everyone is so confused about that right now, because they're like, look, the job numbers are terrible. He's going to lower interest rate. I'm like, no, unemployment rate. And I'll explain why that's different in a second. But he was super clear that this new framework was going to focus on higher rates, probably generally, because it's going to be more focused on price stability. And if rates come down, they're going to come down slowly, there's not going to be this, all of a sudden it's 1.5% next month. Like the way the market started trading during his Jackson Hole speech, you would have thought this man had said in September, the interest rate will be 1%. I was so bamboozled by everybody's reaction, but whatever. And what's going on with jobs right now, as far as why the Fed is probably, if they lower it next month, or this month, oh gosh, it's September. If they lower it this month, it's going to be by nothing, and it's going to be temporary. I am kind of very on the fence about whether that actually happens. But the reason that they're probably not going for any long-term, they're certainly not cutting any long-term rates, and they're not going to be doing it for a long time, is because even though jobs numbers are down, the labor force is also down because of all of the immigration policies that are in place. Out huge swaths of the labor market, and or they have left the labor market because they're terrified, so they're just hiding in our country. That's happening right now. People self-deporting. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening. So what Powell said in that Jackson Hole meeting that almost nobody in the press explained, I think the AP talked about it just a little bit, but everybody else just ignored this, was he was like, unemployment is steady because even though the jobs numbers have plummeted, so has the labor force, which means that ratio is not. And no one's understanding that connection of the likelihood of a big rate drop because of jobs pressures is just, it's based on the math we have right now, is not there. So either rates are going to hold steady or maybe even tick up a little bit, depending on how tariffs cause inflationary pressure. All this to say, the reason that we're trying to fire Lisa Cook is so that we can get in a Trump loyalist into that board. Because even just one more voice in the board of 7 governors that they've got right now is going to start to tip the scale against Powell. And also, like I said, it really is just a threat to Powell. It's like, hey, if I can fire her, I can probably fire you. I can figure out a way to fire you. I think the most disturbing part about that whole proceeding, and fortunately, it's in front of Gia Cobb, which, praise God that, Judge Gia Cobb, all hail. She's been reading the Government, the Riot Act for a couple months now. But one of the things that was most disturbing about that proceeding was the statement from the government lawyer that anything is for cause, which has been government's whole theory of the case this entire time. Like,
exactly.
Well, we said it. We gave a reason. We fulfilled our legal obligation for cause, and everyone's just kind of staring at them like you're kidding, right? But no, they're totally serious. They're absolutely unironically saying like, yeah, no, we gave a reason, so it's for cause. And so this is it's ridiculous and disturbing. Fortunately, like I said, it's in front of the right judge. Judge Cobb is she really has zero patience for nonsense with this government, but she's also the decisions that I've seen her pull down have been very level-headed. She is not, if they are going to try and turn around and be like, she's an activist judge. I mean, I don't even know where you would get that. Like her like quotes from the courtroom and whatever are very even keeled. She's just like, sorry, this is the law. As you saw, it's not like she immediately issued a stay or anything. She just was like, let me expeditiously deal with this and figure it out. I want to hear more information and I want you to bring me more evidence. But if there's no evidence, if there's no real evidence of wrongdoing, or they can't prove the case, she's not going to find, she's not going to find cause. Final note, and then I'll stop talking, is I think there's a high likelihood it goes to the Supreme Court, because Trump's ability to fire independent agencies like this has already gone through them a couple of times. Not the Fed. The Fed's kind of a whole other level. And so I think it would be, for the Trump administration, they would view it as like, this would be the linchpin right here. We really want to see if we can get this thing under our belt, because then the gloves are off. As far as like whether he has 5 votes to sustain that, I think it's a little bit different from like the NLRB and some of the other cases that we've seen that have, I think, still unlawfully. Like I think the Supreme Court is acting lawlessly for sure. But yeah, they are. Like the Supreme Court is trash, and I say that all the time, and I have no problem saying it. But except for KBJ, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan. 3 of them are fine. Everyone else, like, please sit down. Take several seats back. But I think the Supreme Court, first of all, they have, even Roberts, as much of a milquetoast as he is, he does seem to know where like the chaos line is. And as I was mentioning earlier, the central bank losing its independence is like a whole new level of chaos. Like NLRB, okay, we're screwing the labor unions. Well, we're okay with that, right? The FTC thing, which actually just got, a different judge has just struck down that thing today. So, Federal Trade Commission, yeah, that sucks, but it's, the Fed is like, this is like, we've gone nuclear here trying to fire a Fed governor without cause. And pretending like just the words of our mouth are enough to justify it. I cannot stress enough the economic meltdown that would result from the originators of the independent central bank losing the independence of their central bank it's just like I don't think anyone wants to go there. And I think even the Supreme, like Roberts and Kavanaugh in particular, I think are too cowardly to do that, to be frank. I think they're both a little like they're happy to kowtow to Trump most of the time. But I think when it comes to something like this, that really is like, nah, dude, we will blame you forever. And if it goes to them on remand like that, or I'm sorry, by appeal like that, there will be no doubt whose fault it is. You know, if Judge Cobb rules like not to give the government this cause, and if no cause is really found, right? If they can't prove criminality and like all this kind of thing, I don't know how else I don't know how SCOTUS would get out of being like the one holding the bag. You're the ones who destroyed our central bank and all the economic fallout that comes after. And they're already kind of terrified of the fact that their approval ratings of the Supreme Court have dropped like 20 points in the last decade or so because the public are so enraged by like Roe, for instance. I think, judicial reform is already getting more steam than they would probably like, and it would just fuel that. So there's my slightly optimistic view of, I think Roberts and Kavanaugh in particular don't have the chutzpah to take it to that level. But you tell me what you think. What do you think of that? Do you think maybe they're just too stupid to realize that, though?
Yeah, Kate, I think we're fucked if it goes to the Supreme Court. I agree with you on Roberts, because Roberts has dissented on things that Republicans have been counting on him for years. He's dissented several times. You already know what you're going to get from the worst Supreme Court justice in history, Clarence Thomas. You already know what you're going to get from him.
And
you already know what you're going to get from Easy Alito.
Yes.
And I think you pretty much know what you're going to get from that handmaiden's tale that we put into the judiciary. Kavanaugh, I just kind of feel like he's too much of a flunky. And I feel as though right now they feel as though they're untouchable, because even if 4 people dissent, you still have the far right wing superseding the 4 people that would possibly dissent. And I think they just really don't care.
I think Gorsuch is the one that I'm kind of looking at as well. Between Gorsuch and Roberts,
maybe
like
Gorsuch.
I think Gorsuch is gettable on this, because he, as much as again, he can be a little so yeah, like I think you and I are like, Kavanaugh's a coward, so which way will he fall on the coward's way, right? He could fall either way. He could be like, I'm too much of a coward to be blamed for the economic meltdown of the century. Right. But he could also be too much of a coward to stand up to Trump. Gorsuch is a little more, because Gorsuch is so institutionalist.
Right. I agree.
This could be one of those things where he goes like, the Fed is the institution, right? It could just win out in his brain, where he's like refusing to do that as much as he would love to give Trump a win. He's also afraid of upending it, because I think I'm hoping that maybe the SCOTUS justices are starting to realize that the demolishing of these institutions is like all fine and good until it hits 1 First, right? Being that, 1 First is the address of the Supreme Court in DC, 1 First Street.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's like one of the most, that's Article 3 of the Constitution. And yet there's so much about Article 3 that isn't in the Constitution that we've just done by precedent so far. And I think we, the people, are looking at going like, well, that could change. We could have 20 justices on the Supreme Court. We could have, like, there's all sorts of reform. And it's like, and if you guys, you know what I mean? And again, economics was the #1 reason why Trump got elected, stupidly, because people did not understand what his policies and his ideas actually meant. I think they are in the find out phase of learning that. But this would be catastrophic. And if the Supreme Court wants to give the people a reason to really rabble rouse and reform them, this would be that reason. I really am like, I'm kind of doing that. I dare you, go ahead, like dismantle the central bank and see how much longer it takes for the fires of dismantling to reach your courthouse. Like I'm hoping Roberts, Gorsuch, and or Kavanaugh will see that. But yeah, you're right. As far as like Barrett, Alito, and Thomas, like, you might as well just like count it now. Like, they're going to be a yes, because they love him. Maybe he'll take them to Italy.
Oh, there's so much stuff wrong going on in there. Harlan Crow supporting Clarence Thomas, and it's not even funny. Getting the man campers and RVs, ladies and gentlemen. And
So
I'm not
bad.
even going to tell you to look it up. I've done a video and looked it up for you. It's so corrupt and crooked to the
Bad.
point where they should be threatened. They should be threatened with court packing and all the things of the nature that would rein in what they have done to give Trump almost dictatorial powers.
Yep.
And I'll end on this topic about Trump trying to get control of the federal governors and the monetary policy. There's a lot of people who are not into the business or have run a business or have had a chance to hang around people who have wealth. They don't understand that one of the biggest ways rich people are able to circumvent taxes is when interest rates are low, they take out massive loans on their assets to avoid capital gains. And they get like these 1% sweetheart loans and can live off that and put that money into bonds or into very low risk ETFs and make more money than what they're being charged in interest. And then they can do the cycle all over again and live off that. Yep. And that's what Trump wants to do here, even though he's fucked up the economy with these tariffs, because businesses are always talking about they have no clarity. It's a day-to-day thing. But with him passing that bill, ladies and gentlemen, and these tax breaks are getting ready to start kicking in for the rich, of course they want lower interest rates so they can go get those loans and then give this trash-ass government, this trash-ass economy to the Democrats and say, fix it.
Yep.
It always happens like that.
Yes.
Do we go back to Bush? Obama had to come in and clean some shit up. Do you go back to the first Bush when things got wrecked with that war and Clinton had to come in for the dot-com boom? Do we go from COVID when Biden had to fix shit from Trump? It always turns out that Democrats have got to clean up the mess and be the good guys while Republicans get to party. They get to have the fun. They get to have all this rich people euphoria.
Right.
While we sit around and had to be stuck in the game of inflation. So I want you guys to think about what this means. In layman's terms, for where a lot of you all are at that haven't had the opportunity to be in some of these rooms. When more money is pumped into the marketplace, you're going to have inflation. And why does that hurt you, the layperson, twice? Because most of the time, the money that's getting pumped into the marketplace, you don't get to see a dime of it. But the effects of inflation, because there's more money circulating in the economy, so that means the price of goods now have to go up. You get that stuck right in your butt with an ugly stick. You didn't get the money up front.
Right.
And then you having to pay more on the back end for the people that are happy to take that upfront money. And then they're happy to rocket ship prices to the moon, and then they stair-step them down, ladies and gentlemen. This is why you have to pay attention to the monetary policy, folks. And with that, we'll move on to the next subject. And the next one might be a little fun, Kate. We've only got two more, so I won't be holding you too long.
No worries.
The next one is, for the longest time, Kate, people have, when Michelle Obama came out when Trump got elected the first time, she made this statement of when they go high, when they go low, we must go high.
We go high, yep.
And Kate, I've kind of been into politics since I was in my late 20s, and now I'm 45. And I've had the opportunity to be around. I live in the kind of Republican area of North Carolina, and a lot of the white guys that taught me business, they're Republicans. And I learned quickly from them that the rule of law and all that shit, they don't believe in it. They love to point people to street level crime while they rape and pillory with white collar crime. And their gateway drug into doing that is cheating on their taxes.
Yes.
So I already knew that these people wasn't worth a shred of doubt. And so when Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high, I was the only one that I can remember saying, nah, don't do that shit, Michelle. Don't do it. Because there is no low enough for them to go. There's no such thing as getting to the underbelly of
the bars in hell.
Yes, we have got to go straight to hell with them and kick their asses out. And ladies and gentlemen, Gavin Newsom has decided to do that. I have a clip I want to roll from you where Gavin Newsom is trolling Trump, and Fox News has the audacity to be mad at Gavin Newsom and tell him to act like a professional when he's mocking who? Let's take a look, Kate.
Gavin Newsom trolling Trump, part infinity. Let's go. I, Gavin C. Newsom, the most successful governor in American history, hereby demand that Canada give me a big, beautiful plane I get to keep after I leave office, if I leave. If their new prime minister, very nice guy but not as handsome as Trudeau, does not send me a plane, California will impose the biggest tariffs he has ever seen, as is my God-given right. Many people are saying Governor Gavin C. Newsom deserves the best plane, even better than Air Force One, and I agree. Send the big plane, Prime Minister Carney. I deserve it. Thank you, Gavin C. Newsom. Because of the fact that Kid Rock is not in the best interest of our great state, I am giving serious consideration to taking away his residency. He is a threat to California's eardrums and should remain in the wonderful state of Michigan, if they want him. God bless America, Gavin C. Newsom. And then because Gavin is literally the master of trolling Trump at this point, we also have this.
Introducing the Gavin Newsom Gold Runners, the drop everybody's been waiting for. Pure shine, California sleek, built for the ones leading the future. Not some cheap knockoff gold like certain failed sneaker hustles. We're talking real drip, real power, real movement. Every step is confidence. Every stride, a statement. Limited edition and only $299. Pre-order today before they're gone. Gavin Newsom 2028. The future doesn't wear clown shoes.
And truly, I have to say that my favorite part of all of this is that if you watch Fox News or listen to reporters ask Gavin about any of this nonsense, it goes completely over their head that this is mocking him. It's so funny because all their questions are like, this is so juvenile. This is so unprofessional. I can't believe that the governor of California is doing this. Right. And he just blatantly says, yeah, isn't it dumb? Isn't it unprofessional? Maybe you should ask the president of the United States why he acts like this. The fact that they don't get it is like just icing on the cake. It's the only thing getting me through my days. I swear.
Floor is yours first, Kate. Talk to me about this.
All right. Well, so many thoughts. First of all, I love great satire, and I love I agree with Michelle Obama's statement, and I disagree with, I think, the way the majority of the Democratic Party has taken it and enacted on it. So in order to, I believe you should go high, and that can include being able to turn around and rip off the ridiculous mask of what this is, which is that we have a wannabe tyrant in office who is ridiculous and not smart and really needs help. And I mean that in a lot of different ways. And the only way to do that really is to be smarter than they are, which is like what Gavin Newsom's PR team is doing. And I think where maybe I don't know if it's a misstep or maybe just not rising to not meeting the moment has come for the Democratic Party with the whole we go high thing, is they think that means that it's oh, we're just going to be, we're going to pretend that's not happening and pretend like it's just a squabble in the grass, because at the end of the day, he is still the president of the United States. He still has access to the red button. I don't think there's a real one, but you guys know what I mean. He still has the ability to make crazy policy changes and wait for the courts to catch up. He can still break a lot of things in his little juvenile tantrum that he's having, and his acolytes around him can do so much damage. I mean, Stephen Miller, Caroline Leavitt, it's bad. It's treason is what it is, but and not treason in the strictly legal sense, because we're not at war and there's a whole reason for that. But you know what I mean, in the colloquial sense, this is treasonous against our country and what we stand for. I like to think that I, at least with my content, I'm trying to do the same thing of I'm going high as in I'm going to reveal how illegal, unintelligent, not evidence-based all of this is. But I'm going to maybe match energy as far as mocking you or asking you questions that are totally rhetorical. I know the answer. When I'm calling an intern sometimes and they're I always say it's though, right? That this is ridiculous that Bill Cassidy hasn't subpoenaed RFK junior yet to his committee, that like we're not going to sit here and pretend like that confirmation wasn't bullshit, right? Like,
Right.
and I think that's like, but as far as like the we also need, sometimes we need that shot of like adrenaline to get through this hellscape, because this is ridiculous what we're living through. And then the people who aren't living through it, and I mean that literally, like people are losing their lives and their livelihoods and everything over this. The only way to get through the tragedy, that because every day is like a fresh tragedy, is this type of humor, is like what Newsom's office is doing and offering, is like, it's not wrong. I think people who, because I think both sides of the aisle are doing it. Some of the liberals and some of the Democrats are going like, oh, Gavin is like, sinking to his level or whatever. And it's like, okay, we need to get through this somehow. Like that woman was saying, she's like, that's literally the only way that I'm getting through this right now. That's true. The oppressed have used humor for always in human history to get through something hard. And especially satirical humor that speaks truth to power. That is like one of the most common ways that communities, marginalized communities, have responded to oppression in order to survive, not only literally like physically survive, but also psychologically survive. Like, we have to get through these next 3.5 years somehow. Right. It's only been 6 months. I mean, effectively 7 months, I guess. Yeah. I mean, it feels like it's saying forever. And I heard one of my favorite podcasts refers to it as a 4-year sentence. And I was like, Jesus, this is like exactly what it is. A sentence for our, whatever. But I also, I think that, first of all, I do have a lot of hope when I'm not completely depressed and exhausted by what's happening. I have a lot of hope that, hey, you know what? We've been here as a country before. And I mean, you obviously specialize in speaking, for the stories of the Black community. This is not new. Like, everyone who's like waking up all of a sudden going like, oh my gosh, oppression. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to the oppression. It sucks.
Right. It's terrible.
Sucked always, actually. Let's talk about it. So we've been here before. We've done this before many, many times. And those communities respond very much the way Gavin Newsom is responding right now. That like, hey, let's find the ridiculous in the nonsense, and let's call it what it is, and create stories and art and writing and everything about it, so that we can get through it now. And it's also a great way to document it for late. Like, it's looking back and seeing like counter propaganda from, history past is also very healing. It's like great to look at like how some Germans were like mocking Hitler, and like, I mean, there's so, this is just, it's a tale as old as time. So anyone who's not on board with it, like, I'm sorry, but like, okay, like, if it's not your particular brand of coping mechanism, fine, move on. Not everything is for you. If it helps the people who it's designed to help, which is people who are incredibly desperate right now. I am personally, fortunately, in a situation where I'm okay, at least for now. I'm not like, oh God, I'm going to starve in the street or something. But so many people are not. And if if they have a way of getting through this that includes like mocking their leader or like sinking to his level or whatever, like fine, like whatever. So there's my thoughts. There's my thoughts on that. Go Gavin, keep going. Yeah.
I kind of feel like a lot of people need what Gavin is doing, because a lot of people feel like the silence from the Democrats, some people equate it to weakness or just not being a counterbalance in the room, is what a lot of people equate it to. And it just piles on to the defeatedness that some people are feeling right now, who are beaten down by Trump in the places where he's using people as pawns, who are getting beat down where he's sending the National Guard as his personal police force. And you're having to go outside with your children and see these fuckers standing around who are doing their jobs. Some of them don't want to do it, but they're doing it anyway, and it makes you feel uneasy. And we need what Gavin is doing sometimes to remind people. If he had the ability to send the National Guard to all these blue cities, why the fuck didn't he have the ability to send the National Guard during the insurrection? Because he didn't want to.
Right.
Put the mirror up in their face. And this is what this type of punchback does. And in my own videos, the way that I try to get through to people and show my will and my mentality to stand up is I pull no punches and calling people names. Now, the content of what I'm talking about, you can fact check me all you want to, because I'm verifying it. But when it comes to calling out people's names, I'm calling Trump Taco Trump. I'm calling Caroline KKK Levitt. I'm calling her for what she is. She looks like a Chucky doll with blonde hair. I'm calling them out. I'm giving those fucker nicknames, and you can say I'm going low all you want to, but you can't say that what I'm not. You can't say that the content of what I'm saying is inaccurate.
Right.
And it's kind of one of those things where you punch them where you can while you're still doing the overall good of trying to serve everybody for a better nation. And Democrats can do that. I mean, a Democrat policy versus a Republican policy. Republicans love to talk about identity politics. Their whole identity is to serve the rich and those that feel like they're entitled to be sitting on the top. So white guys who have no business being in certain positions on top of minorities and women just because you was born white. That's their identity. Okay. Democrats try to make policy that uplifts. It's a rising tide to uplift all boats, meaning we're trying to serve LGBTQ+, trying to serve women, we're trying to serve minorities. The rich people are already getting served. And what boggles me about some people in MAGA is how they always fall for the banana in the tailpipe of allowing the rich to socialize government funds and then capitalize on the gains, all while telling the regular toothless redneck who watches football and then flips over to NASCAR and drinks beer with a straw that the people should not be able to do the same thing. The people shouldn't use social programs. And definitely you're not going to capitalize on it. And I've always tried to figure out, how does that work in MAGA's head? And it comes back to the same thing. If you believe in magic and you believe that one person can be ordained by God to tell you what to do, then you believe it. And I have a problem with that. If everybody was using the social capital that this country has produced, the nation would be in a better place. And I said all that to say, what Gavin Newsom is doing is providing for some people a show of hope that we still can fight. And that not only can we fight dirty, but we already know that when we take the fight, we win the fight by doing the right policies. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think that's very valid.
Yeah. Y'all post your comments. Let us know what you think. I will take Kate to the last subject. And again, please be sure to subscribe to her channel. Link is in description. You might catch some replays of this on her channel because she's going to get a copy of this whole entire thing for her leisure, her fun. And please be sure to check me out at beacons.politics of being black. Link is up there in the description. You can get all my YouTube, and that is my oldest child who loves to hang with daddy, and she's doing brilliant things in her Spanish transition class this year, ladies and gentlemen. Last thing we're going to cover, Kate, is something that I'm always preaching about, that Democrats, when they get power, they've got to fix it. We're getting to the point, Kate, where the minorities, how can I put this? The minorities in government power are outweighing the majority of the will of the people, meaning that California has a set number of senators to represent millions of people versus flyover country who might have 1 million people total in the state get the same amount of senators. Right. Now, we do know that we adjust the House to try to compensate for that. But Kate, that hasn't been enough when you compensate for the senators and the electoral college. And it's getting to the point where the minority dissent of Americans is outweighing the majority dissent. And I think Democrats have really, really got to do something about this map. And here's a somewhat illustration of what I'm saying from a debate that was had on Jubilee, and we're all familiar with that. Take a look at this, and then we'll let Kate riff, and we'll get her out of here.
How do you feel about the Senate? The Senate is technically DEI in a certain sense for like small states.
Like Rhode Island and Hawaii.
I'm giving you an example. California, I get less of a vote than someone who exists in Wyoming. We're giving people in Wyoming more say than they necessarily should, given that they're one individual. So why do you believe in DEI as it relates to how our government is set up? But you don't believe in DEI in terms of allowing for people who are black or who are women to be in positions of power that they have not been allowed in, historically speaking.
So your argument is that the U.S. Senate is a DEI? I gotta be honest, I've never heard that argument, but I think it's a little silly.
How is it silly? Argue against it instead of just saying it's silly.
Well,
under your definition, why is it not DEI?
Because it's not based on race. It's colorblind. It's not that, we get white
again,
states
DEI
more,
is not
black
only based
states
on
more.
race.
Hold on a second.
Diversity for country, diversity for rural, equity for
Hold on a
rural,
second.
and inclusion of
So,
rural.
well, that's
DEI. You think DEI is only race because that's what you associate it with Kamala Harris.
Is there a single instance in corporate America where DEI is implemented where diversity means anything other than skin color diversity?
So diversity,
No, it's not about viewpoint.
women.
What?
You have to move the goalpost a little bit because you got destroyed there.
That was good. I mean, Charlie Kirk's an idiot. Doesn't take much, but yeah.
And he looks just like the thing on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer too. But floor is yours, Kate. What do you think about how I'm feeling about? Yes, floor is yours.
What a problem. Okay, so where do we start? Well, first of all, the founding fathers who first of all, if you've never read this book, everybody, I highly recommend the Allow Me to Retort. It's a black guy's response to the Constitution by Elie Mystal. Amazing book. And first of all, get the audiobook because he narrates it, or he's the one reading it, and it is the only way, I think. I won't even bother with the paper version because I'm usually a paper version girl. Like, I love to read books. But this audiobook is just so great. This man reading his own words. And he does such a fantastic job kind of taking away some of the mystique of the Constitution as far as like, I am a constitutionalist. I do believe that the Constitution is a great document. I don't think it is the end all be all because it was written by white slaveholders. And one of the places where you can see that this was written by white, male, property owning slaveholders is the Senate. Because they have firewalled the Senate from even being able to like amend the Constitution effectively to deal with its problems. So I think it's funny, even Elie in his book says like trying to get rid of the Senate or trying to change the Senate is like probably a no-go. Like the amount of overhaul you'd have to do to the original text of the Constitution is so huge, and probably there's not enough people in this land who will care enough to go through that process. It's probably a lost cause. The Electoral College, however, that's more of an open question. And so I think the Senate is trash, but it was sort of baked in, and barring a complete revolution where we destroy the Constitution and start all over again, which I'm not saying that's not something. That's kind of one of those things where it's like, I guess if we reach that point, then of course we have to do it, but I'm not exactly advocating for that. The EC though, that thing needs some work. Probably just needs to go, to be honest. There is also the compact of the faithless electors compact that not every state is part of, but it's certainly a start of forcing electors from each of the states to guarantee that they will go with what their state's popular vote demanded of them. Because technically, unless you're a part of that compact, as an elector, you can vote for the presidential candidate that you think should happen, whether you're people in the state voted for it or not, and which is insane to me, by the way, absolutely insane.
Very much.
I remember when I was younger, I used to believe that the EC was just a default to whatever the state voted for, and when I learned that there was such a thing as faithless electors and whatever, I was like, what? The most undemocratic thing I've ever heard in my life. And even the most anti-republic thing, like people who always like to go, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. I'm like, so please explain the electoral college then, because technically it's not even a republic. Like they get to kind of do whatever the fuck they want, and there's really not that many. I mean, there are some consequences depending on the state you're in and like whatever, but not really. And then it's like, in theory, if you could be a faithless elector and say, well, I'm going to cast my vote for Trump because I feel like it. My whole state voted blue, but I don't care. And again, depending on which state you're in, that might have absolutely no consequences for you personally. You could just do it YOLO and move on. And that's insane to me. It's absolutely insane. So, I mean, if I had my way, we would abolish the electoral college. We would just be done with it. We would amend the Constitution and say, yeah, that shit's over. It wasn't. Thank you for your service. Please go away. If we can't do that, then we need to uncap the House. As you said, the House has not been re-ratioed in what, the 50s or something was the last time when we brought on Hawaii, right? Like that was the last,
right, exactly.
Hawaii,
yep.
And so a lot has changed since we added Hawaii as a state. And so we need to reassess like the numbers and redistrict and like all that kind of stuff. And, you know, all like that, redoing the House is actually less cumbersome because it doesn't require constitutional amendments. It's a thing that just requires congressional action. Will we have that before we have congressional term limits? I doubt it. I think that's part of the problem, is that while we continue to not have term limited while we continue to not have term limits for congressional offices, there's no incentive for the ones who are in Congress to change that particular thing. That redistricting thing would oust many of them probably from their safe seats. It would destroy a lot of partisan safe seats on both sides of the aisle. Like, this is going to be one of those both sides issues where it's like, I don't think the establishment, either party, is going to be interested in doing that. So it's going to have to. So basically, what I'm saying is, order of operations is you need term limits first in order to have incentivized, duly elected officials who would actually be willing to uncap the House. Hopefully, after uncapping the House and having a more representative Congress, we would have the Congress who would be able to advance forward an amendment to deal with the Electoral College. And then maybe at that point, we would have enough actual democratizing happening where we could look at the Senate and see if we could do the necessary overhaul for that. Because again, the Constitution, I forget exactly the wording, but when they wrote in the Senate, the framers were very, very much like, we do not want the Senate to ever be different than this particular thing. And they were is motivated by all sorts of reasons that have everything to do with power and nothing to do with democracy. But anyway, so there's my spiel on how we district ourselves in this here Hunger Games and how terrible it is.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, of course, I support what she's saying. And she went there with some great educational nuggets and places for you to go. Please get that book she mentioned. I'm with it here, Kate. The Democrats just have got to play the long game of overhauling the entire thing. And they've got to play the long game of getting facts back in the education system and maybe some form of critical thinking so that we can all be playing on the same playing field. Yeah. And then we chip away at the Electoral College. We got to chip away at it. And, you know, some of that is going to take, you've got to have 2/3 of states going with whatever you can get the rest of the Congress to do. You've got to get 2/3, which is going to be hard as hell by itself. Mm-hmm. However,
3/5, I think. 3/5 of states, two-thirds of Congress, 3/5 of states. You have great ratios, yeah.
Yeah, right. which is still going to be hard. Make
Yeah,
no
hard as
mistake,
hell.
that's going to be, but it
Yeah.
can be done, ladies and gentlemen, if the Democrats are willing to play the long game. So in the Democratic playbook, you have got to start smartening up. And I don't want to say cheat because cheat is too strong of a word. But I want to say you've got to match the energy that the Republican parties have continuously shown that they're willing to do to continue to have power. And if we are going to thrive as a democratic republic, for you fucking airheads out there that always, oh, we're not democracy. You always want to say that bull jive. I said the whole thing. We're a mixture of both. We're a democratic republic. That's what it's going to take for us to remain that way, or we're going to keep slipping into the doldrums of dictatorship because, Kate, there is a legitimate amount of people who are so driven by hate, who lied and said that they went to vote for Trump because of fiscal policy when it was nothing about fiscal policy. That's what they told the pollster. In all honesty, it was on the libs. Trump is going to value Anglo-Saxon males higher than he does anybody else, and I'm one of them. And I'm going to convince my wife, who I take to church and tell her that God said the man is the head of the household, so you do what I say and you vote like I say. They're going to keep pushing that narrative. And if we don't do something in the long game, Democrats, it might get to a point where it's going to be hard for us to seize power back, short of actual having another civil war here in America. And nobody wants to deal with that at this day and age. We don't want to deal with that.
Please no civil war.
We say no.
I will say the gettable people are not MAGA, obviously. I talk about this a lot. The independents of this country are the gettables. And they are gettable on the economic issues. And if you can get them on the economic issues, you can hold power long enough to make the reforms that we're talking about. That long, because you can't play the long game unless you can hold the offices long enough to actually play the long game. And that's where Republicans have been kicking Democrats' asses for a long time. And either, you know, when we're talking about like Clinton or something like that, who, you're right, did a great job like writing the fiscal ship as far as like the mess that he was left by HW and Reagan, but also was very neoliberal and empowered the corporations that now rule this country. And, you know what I mean? Like he really was the beginning of that. And Obama did, I think he did a good job trying to chip back at that. But between Reagan, HW, Clinton, and then W, that was a lot of inertia to get through. And then we got Trump. And Trump rewound that clock all the way back to the 80s.
You got it.
And it's especially with the TCJA, which is a whole other topic. Oh, don't get me started. But I really truly believe independent moderates, if you can convince them that the Republicans are shit at the economy, which quite frankly, it's like we're living it now. So like, please open your eyes, everybody. That's like what I spend so much of my time doing on my channel, is just being like, independents, look at me. This is not good economic policy. And if you can get them there, I think you can. I have a whole theory on this, and the Democrats are willing to sell an economic platform to the level at which it will actually make economic gains for the everyday person, raising the minimum wage, taxing the shit out of corporations, eliminating stock buybacks, all of those things that are bad for the donor class, bad for the political donor class on both sides of the aisle, but good for the American people. You can actually hold power long enough to do these reforms. It's going to require a lot of brave leaders in the Democratic Party, but I believe it can get done. I believe there are Mamdanis and there are Jasmine Crockett's and there are, they are the people ready and willing to do this if they can just get the positions and the seats and the whatever to really lead the party that way. So there's my speech on that. My little sermon on what the Democrats need to do. Please do this, Democrats. As an independent, I'm begging you. So.
Yeah, and then you've got the me's and the you's of the world. Well, granted, I lean more toward the Mandami perspective. I do fully understand that you can get the libertarians if you can explain to them how it's not right that corporations continue to socialize the government's money. Correct. When that same money that you give Amazon to move into my community and then tell them they don't have to pay taxes for 10 years, then you give them $5 million up front. How about you give that same money to the people that have already been in the community, holding down the community for years, and let them expand their businesses. Let them hire from within. You can give that same money to them, and that would be great economic policy because you're
Amazing.
allowing the people who's holding down the community already to utilize money that you was going to give out any fucking way.
Exactly.
Amazon didn't need a break.
Well, and that money moves faster. You give it to Amazon, it goes into a
Right.
stock buyback. You give it to the
Exactly.
consumer and they consume it, and that person consumes the next thing and they go buy supplies for their
Right.
business. And then that business
Right.
owner, that supplier, you know, the velocity of money to labor or the consumer, whatever you want to call it, whatever, pick an economic term, is exponentially faster than the velocity of any money you're going to give to a corporation in the form of an incentive or a subsidy or tax credit or whatever. It's just nonsense. The stories and the lies we've told ourselves for you know, since Reaganomics became a thing, about how, you know, corporate tax cuts and whatever create jobs and all this bullshit. And it truly is just propped up by a bunch of economists who are being paid by corporations to say the same thing. And the research behind it, there's so much elegant, beautiful research showing, like, taking the mask off of that economic quote research that has been happening. One of my favorites is a meta regression analysis showing that you are 3 times as likely to be published if you conclude that corporate tax cuts create economic growth. 3 times more likely to be published in journals. And that same analysis then went in and correcting for the bias of the publishing bias, found that there was literally no evidence to suggest that that cuts to CIT, corporate income tax, resulted in economic growth. It's just not there.
It's not.
And that's, I was like, this paper, like, I need to hunt down these authors and have them on my channel at some point, because I'm like, I need you to tell everybody else.
Well, you don't have to hunt them down. You've got it. I mean, there's one that I researched, and I need to hunt down the name of the book and all that I read, but it basically undressed trickle-down economics as part of the mechanism of capitalism. It does not work.
It does not.
It does not.
If you want
work.
capitalism, you can either have socialism for corporations, or socialism, you know, socialism for individuals or whatever, or you can have like capitalism with social programs that make sense, like education, healthcare, and whatever, and have real capitalism because I actually like capitalism, guys. It's so funny. Like, I've got so many people who are like, you're like a socialist, communist for stuff. I'm like, I don't dislike capitalism. I just don't think capitalism is a solution to every single thing in our society, like healthcare and education. Like, you know, I think it's a great, you know, it's a great framework for business. It has no place in health. No one should be making a profit over whether someone lives or dies. Like, the fact that we have for-profit life insurance companies, I don't understand, you know, or health insurance companies. I don't get that. Like, we really look at that with a straight face and go like, yeah, that makes sense. Like,
and that's but see, that's the problem. And I always say it this way: unfeathered, untethered capitalism. We're supposed to have guardrails in place that no one is given a consequence to, that allows capitalism to go off the rails. And I'll end it with this. For those people that thought they got Trump, maybe they did tell themselves from history mentally that the party of good economics is the Republican Party, and that's the party that's going to lead us to prosperity and all that bull jive. And they might have voted for that on Trump, but it wasn't one of the top 2. And for the libertarians who voted for Trump, did you know that one of the first things he did in the first month was get rid of the Consumer Bureau for Protection? That was one of the first things he did. The body of the government designed to protect you from white collar crooks like him and the ilk of people that voted for his dumb ass. The Grant Cardones and the Kevins and all these social media buffoons who faked it till they make it, and now they want to act like they're some official real businessmen. They went in and got rid of that protection agency. Then, like 2 months later, he's rolling back protection so that the bank can't overfee you to death, ladies and gentlemen. And if you don't know, one way banks and mutual funds and insurance company makes money is they do all these stock tricks. They sell puts, they sell calls, then they do investing in dividends. They do all this stuff, and then they get special clearances that a retail trader can't get to make sure that they win. They are making money hand over fist, and we have allowed, in essence, the sheep to be thrown into the lion's den, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
When you thought that voting for Trump was going to get you a better economy and a better life, and you're getting the complete opposite because Democrats don't do a good enough job of preaching the message of how great they are for business when it comes to starting with the middle class and the poor and going up. And we've got to start doing that too. Same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us. You can find Kate at Kate for the People on TikTok. Her link is in description. Kate, what do you have looking forward for the people to see on your TikTok in the next couple of days?
So I am going to be interviewing actually a couple of folks from the Soberania podcast, which is from Mexican Sovereignty Media. You read a lot about Mexico and its policies and politics and President Claudia Sheinbaum and whatnot. This is a grassroots left leaning news outlet and podcast. They are fantastic. A great way to get like a real look into Mexican politics. And if you don't think that applies to you, I just invite you to look at the tariff situation that we got going on all around us. The fate of Mexico and Canada is going to be inextricably bound up with the fate of the US. And I will say that if I had to bet on on either of those countries, as far as being able to stand up to Trump, it's Sheinbaum all the way. So,
definitely.
Yeah, like
definitely.
I have other content that I'll be doing on Carney eventually, where I'm like, please, dude, grow a spine. But soon.
He said his balls need to drop, ladies and gentlemen. If you want a good giggle, his balls need to go ahead and drop quickly.
God. I did not say that.
No, she didn't. I said it.
Yeah. But no, I'm going to be talking to them on Thursday, and I'm also going to be doing a lot, continuously doing work on our upcoming government shutdown or not. This is the big deal, guys. Appropriations is literally Congress's only job, really. And they've been very much unable to do it for over a year now. And it's just, I don't understand. But, if they continue to be unable to do it, then the Democrats need to make more political gains out of that than they have been. They've been not using this dynamic to their advantage at all to undo literally anything. The big, beautiful bill is still rearing its ugly head. It's just a whole thing. So that's what I'm going to be working on top of everything else, and trying to stay ahead of these headlines, because my God. So we'll see. But thank you so much for having me on. This has been an absolute pleasure. I had no idea what to expect, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I tend to surprise people. I tend to surprise people. The show is better than what you think. I have a large audience on YouTube that was built based on movies and TV shows on my other channel. And I've always been political at heart. Even the scripts I've written all basically villainize Trump and MAGA.
Yes.
And the superheroes have to come and overthrow certain situations where people are using Trump as a puppet. And so I've always kind of been political. I've just never really ventured out and started doing the channel until now. And I should have done it a long time ago, to be honest with you, because in 2 months, I've already gotten almost 8,000 subscribers for the political channel and a lot of views on the podcast. And I just want to thank you for being one of my few guests in the beginning. Of course, we're going to keep following you and whatever you do. And we see some office in your future too, and we'd love to be donating and seeing you make that thing happen.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, undecided. I get that question a lot. Undecided right now. What I am decided on is that I am a super nerd, especially with Marvel and DC, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. I really don't discriminate. So your whole setup right here has just made me so happy this entire time. I've been like, yes, I make a lot of Marvel references in my content, so definitely check it out.
So sometimes for B-roll, when I'm talking about politics, I'm using Marvel. It's a cross between the things I do. So I do B-roll, so what you might be hearing from me might make you depressed, but what you're seeing on the screen for B-roll makes you feel good. So there you have it,
It's
ladies
so
and gentlemen.
applicable. It's perfect.
Right, right. Well, Kate, thank you so much for having mercy on my soul and coming through. We've loved to have you back in a couple of weeks. Bring you on with some of my elected officials that have decided to come and do the show with me, and continue to let you educate. And everybody, please go and check her out. And that's going to do it for us. Don't forget to like our video. Don't forget to go check her out. And until that next Sexy as Hell video, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of here.
Bye.